We just passed the 1-month anniversary of the Prophet and the Warlock, and that means we're past the honeymoon stage now. Shiny new toys have begun to lose their luster a bit, and what was fresh and exciting and different is starting to settle in and become an everyday part of the Warhammer 2 experience. But thankfully, Sigmar has blessed our ravaged bodies with a mod workshop, and there are very few mods that have shaped the landscape of this trilogy quite like SFO Grimhammer. With over 160,000 subscribers on Steam, it has been consistently one of the most played overhaul mods available on the workshop and one of its most contentious. So today, we're going to be taking a closer look at the Order and Mayhem update, which has overhauled 2 old world factions and introduced a ton of new content for races across the board. For those who've never played the mod before, nor seen any of my video overviews for it in the past, SFO Grimhammer is all about taking what exists in vanilla and in the lore and turning it up to 11 to help accentuate the differences between races. Essentially Warhammer 2 if it was a Warpstone crack addict, infused with the juices of Sigmar, Sotek, and the Ruinous Powers. It's a pretty heady brew, a concoction that has had some missteps along the way for sure, but has been one of my go-to mods over the last 2 years when I wasn't really feeling like playing vanilla. And honestly, if you're looking for chaos to feel like world-ending brutes, Skaven to feel like verminous mad scientists with cataclysmic firepower, or the Wood Elves to feel like Don Cheadle as Captain Planet, I highly recommend giving it a go. So, without further ado, let's go over some of the changes coming in the Order and Mayhem update. And we'll get it poppin' with the Warriors of Chaos, because they're probably the faction with the most substantial overhauls compared to their vanilla counterpart. Now, if you've played the OG Chaos campaign recently, you'll probably have noticed it's suffering from a multitude of problems, not the least of which is their severe lack of anything related to Chaos Divided. If you want to spread pox and disease, blood and skulls, the fires of change, or the simple pleasures of being flayed alive in their fullest glories, too bad. You're gonna have to wait till Warhammer 3. But in the meantime, it would be pretty nice if we could actually enjoy Gary Stu the Everdaddy and teach these trembling mortals in the old world a lesson, something SFO has been building towards for a very long time. They've gotten an assload of flavor in recent months, and it's kind of come to a head here, where the 4 Chaos Gods have a huge role to play in campaign now. Unique units were added for each of the Blessed 4, my favorite of which are the Khorne-chosen Berserkers, but new in this update are Chaos Marks, where you can choose which blessing regular chosen get before battle. Tzeentch can bless them with a bounce spell, Nurgle grants a plague effect and more durability, Slaanesh grants higher AP and perfect vigor at the cost of armor and leadership, and Khorne grants charge bonus, magic resist, and bonus versus infantry. These elements carry over pretty hardcore onto the campaign map as well, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. The big dumb brutes of the far north got a significant and much needed rework here, and in fact all giants got a rework in that they now have a trample passive that simulates the stomping around they do once they wade into melee. This is a very small AoE at the foot of the giant, but as long as they're in combat, things are going to get turned into paste. Alongside that Bone Crusher contact effect that slows enemies anytime he hits them, he's feeling a lot more bruising when he gets up close and personal. Chaotic Roar is a new ability that debuffs enemies in an AoE, but it remains to be seen if any of these things will actually address Giant's most important issue, which is that they're very slow and very susceptible to missile fire with that gigantic hitbox. The extra 10% missile resist they got here might help a bit in this update, but it just might be a design issue that has no simple fix without massively buffing their mobility as well. In terms of campaign changes, there's some really cool stuff on the way. For one, Chaos Fortresses are now a thing and can be built up in Middenheim, Carcassonne, Carrick 8 Peaks, Khemri, the Gaian Vale, Val's Anvil, Nagaron, Clark Haran, Hexadol, and Zlanwabek. And so you can style your game plan in Chaos Campaign around conquering important cities and building up a handful of these bastions in enemy territory from which you can reave and expand outwards into the realms of men and elves. You might have already noticed, but in Middenheim, you can build the Chaos Portal there that consumed the old world during the end times with some crazy buffs and debuffs attached to it. If you're looking for something to challenge you, it might be worth pursuing there, but as a reward, at the end of a 25-turn wait time, once you turn the city into a level 5 fortress, you can summon the legendary Bloodthirster Kabanda into the mortal plane, a being so powerful it took the combined might of the Incarnates to stop him. But don't worry, this portal will not end your campaign, it will not explode the planet, it'll just give you the strongest hero character in the game, the Lieutenant of Khorne himself. In terms of the model, I actually think it looks pretty damn good, all things considered, but for me personally, I think this is one of those things that's just better left to the devs themselves. There's only so much that can actually be done when kit bashing, when you don't have the ability to actually add new assets to the mix. but I appreciate the effort there, and the idea is super cool. We've seen a couple modders tackle this before. We'll hopefully get to see similar mechanics when Warhammer 3 drops sometime next year, but in terms of the actual model itself, obviously, devs are going to do a much better job, simply because they have the assets and resources to do so. And maybe the biggest rework in the entirety of the patch was reserved for the Chaos Tech Tree, which is a complete behemoth at this point, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Seriously, this thing is massive, with the option to pursue buffs associated with a single god, or follow the ways of Chaos Undivided as an unbroken entity. I think a few of them take too long to research for what they offer, but there are some very interesting buffs there that will grant your armies characteristics associated with that particular deity, should you be willing to invest the favor and tech time required to grab them up. And the old tree is still there, so if you aren't ready to dedicate yourself to skulls or pox yet, you can always go for the classic bonuses as well. But this thing is a monster, and you're going to spend a lot of your time working through that thing, and there's some really cool stuff in there as well. But Chaos isn't the only Game 1 faction getting some new toys to play with. Bretonnia is getting a huge update as well, and the Lost Sons might be the highlight, a unit that was hinted at in source material and art books for years, but never saw the light of day in official capacity. Now, these are the magically gifted boys taken at a young age and molded into knights by the lady herself, riding as her protectors in the vanguard and functioning much like Doomfire Warlocks or Sisters of the Thorn. Magical support cav with damage resist, vigor bonuses, and 4 spells: Harmonic Convergence, Phos Protection, Light of Battle, and Earthblood, and they come in units of 5 in the hero slot. The Green Knight got some big changes as well. He can appear in any defensive battle to help turn the tide, has a completely reworked skill tree, and 2 map-wide global abilities that can completely turn the outcome if things are starting to get dire. And Heremolts are a new unit, Robin Hood's merry band of outlaws essentially. They're stalk and snipe archers without a 360-degree fire arc, who actually debuff other units in the Bretonnian roster to represent the fact that they're completely at odds with the peasantry and the rest of the faction, especially the knights. So they're meant to be utilized far away from the knights and the main line, because they will remove immune to psych, and they will drop a -5 leadership debuff on them as well. They must smell real bad if they're doing that, but that is to represent the fact that they do not work hand in hand with knights or peasants in any way, shape, or form. They're almost a sub-faction within a sub-faction. So you got new tech here, an Errantry War Crusade mechanic that grants your Lord special bonuses if they complete them in time, and a bunch of other stuff makes it a very different experience than vanilla. I've not gotten a chance to play a full Bretonnian campaign yet with SFO. I've gotten about 20-25 turns in, and I'll say the beginning is completely different than what you'd expect from normal vanilla. So if you want to try Bretonnia out after the new update, but you want something a little bit more special, a little bit more unique, I think SFO might bring you what you're looking for. Definitely worth trying out. Now, if you've taken a look at the history of SFO, Magic has been one of the most consistently debated and reworked mechanics in the entirety of the mod, and that trend is going to continue here in spades. For a couple examples, Gehenna's Golden Hounds now spawns a second Vortex when overcast. Earthblood has a melee attack debuff while healing to encourage players to escape from combat before using it. Flesh of Stone's duration was halved, but now prevents models from dying while the effect is active, so it's similar to the Cult of Sotek Skink unit, the Refuse to Die ability. And Fate of Buna has been completely reworked, which is great, because as useful as it is in vanilla, it's also just not a very fun spell. So now Buna has 3 stages, a progressively crippling melee debuff that gets worse and worse as its victims laugh themselves into hysteria. So by the time the 50-second mark rolls around after casting, the afflicted unit will be trying to fight through a brutal malice that severely affects their damage output and survivability in close quarters combat. Because of Giselles, Hawkland long rifles are coming to visit the Empire finally, and woe to the bad guys who end up on the receiving end of their bullets. Leon Todmeister's fantabulously far-reaching harquebus of unforeseeable and unperceived bereavement will put them in the ground super quick, and they get a huge bonus to their shooting stats when no one is within 100 meters of them. Haven't gotten a chance to use them in a practical battle yet. That ability might need some reworking looking at it on paper, but at least in the opening stages of a battle, their stat line means they're going to be very punishing to single entities and high-value units before melee begins in earnest. So honestly, expect something very much like the Deck Gunners and Giselles, maybe a little bit better than Deck Gunners, maybe a little bit worse than Giselles, but they're definitely going to be very accurate and very punishing to big monsters. And even the Knight's Panther got a rework. fashioned into bonus for large cav again. They've been having a bit of an identity crisis over the last several patches, but with their Banished Contact effect and Panther Standard, they can scythe through physical resist and help allies do so as well, making them a unit that is designed for punishing demons and other monsters of the Immaterium. The Skaven got all their Forbidden Workshop units added to Custom Battle. Poison Wind Globadiers got a new Warpstone Contact effect that doesn't debuff allies, and Warp Overcharge is still the one mechanic that makes Skaven truly feel like Skaven. You can essentially roll the dice and trade a huge increase in firepower or damage output for the chance to send your weapon teams to an even earlier grave. Rattling guns get a higher rate of fire and the chance to explode, but lose out on quite a bit of their accuracy. Jezzails get better missile damage, but a worse fire rate and a chance their Warpstone bullets will exit the barrel early and take the eye out of one of their homies, and so on and so forth. You're essentially trading a lot of firepower or additional gusto for the chance that your stuff is going to die really early on in the battle. And it's kind of a defining trait of the Skaven that vanilla completely overlooks and lacks in the campaign there, and it adds quite a lot of flavor to the battlefield in SFO. Assassins got their Weeping Blade. Never really made sense that Death Runners would have it, but their higher tier hero variant would not. And the Lizardmen got a Calming Aura on their Skink Heroes and Slann, just like in Tabletop, so if someone's rampaging near them, they'll be able to calm that unit down and make sure they get right back on target. And Tehenoin got his immune to poison, just like in the Tabletop as well. Slann have a magical range attack now, and Croak got a complete rework to his stats and skill tree, so that is something that you're definitely going to look forward to in the campaign, because just like in vanilla, he is an absolute monster, a beast with the casting, but you're going to see some crazy stuff when you get to use him in campaign as well. So essentially, this is a very, very big update with a ton of changes to a lot of core factions and mechanics, and you're starting to get a little bit bored, a little bit tired of the vanilla game, of what you saw in the Prophet and the Warlock. Might be a good time to switch over and give some modded gameplay a shot, because it will breathe a lot of life back into it if you're starting to get a little bit tired of it. I will definitely be doing some SFO content soon. I think some multiplayer scenarios would be a great way to showcase some of the new units and mechanics in a practical setting. But with 3 Kingdoms dropping very soon and some other games I still want to cover, it's going to be a very busy time for Milk and Cookies Total War. Hope you guys enjoyed this look at the Order and Mayhem update for SFO Grimhammer. Link to the mod will be in the pinned comment and description below. And let me know what experiences you guys have had with SFO Grimhammer since the update went live and before. Hope you guys enjoyed. Until then, have a great evening, and I'll see you all in the next video. Indie Pride, signing out for now.